Hey everybody, welcome back to the Decks, where one time Captain Kirby paid the Beard Bros $250 to get us to do trivia and strategy for another Pokemon this week. I'm Team Yell Grunt Alex.
And I'm Pokekells. Wait a minute, so you're telling me that somebody paid the Beard Bros money to bring us back from the dead? Is that legal?
I mean, technically yes, but I haven't told you about what we're doing yet.
Well, that's so messed up. Like, what are we gonna even do an episode on? Like alchemy, Dragapult, the mystery of why people had full-on tantrums about a low poly tree?
Damn, dude, we've been back for 10 seconds and you already spilled the tea.
Whatever, I'm a new woman now, my hair is green, and you can't bully me. Sword and Shield are the best Pokemon games in years. The Isle of Armor kicks ass, and if I'm doing an episode, it's gonna be on one of my favorites, not just some random Pokemon patron from some other YouTube show decides.
We're doing Donphan.
Like I said, Patreon is a good thing that people are good to do, and Captain Kirby is a saint, and if they don't bring back the national decks, I'm gonna get my baby bottle, and I'm gonna get my rattle, and I'm gonna bother people on Twitter until they can't stand it anymore and they get tired.
It's Donphan!
Love Donphan.
Welcome, gamers, to Super Beard Bowl Season 2. Each month, we're doing an all-new 8-episode series complete with a beginning and an end, as voted on by you, our loyal viewers. Without paying a single penny, everyone who watches will be able to vote on one of 4 show ideas, and once you narrow it down from 4 to 2, the Beard Bowl Patreon tier will then choose between the top 2 for which show gets made into a full 8-episode series. This month, the winning series is Beard Bros Movie Reviews. Brett, Jirard, and Alex watch and review movies that you guys thought they might enjoy. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So until then, just sit back, relax, and enjoy another incredible episode of Super Beard Bowl.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Beard Bros movie reviews. I always ruin this intro. Hey, I'm Jirard, that's Brett, and today we're talking about the movie Time Bandits.
Yeah, once again, this is the show that you guys voted on, just in case you forgot, where you give us ideas for movies that you want us to watch and review on the Beard Bros Patreon. So check out the Super Beard Bros Patreon if you want to be involved in that selection process. But yeah, as Jirard said, we're talking about. I apologize. You can hear that, can't you?
It's okay. It's not gonna be on my audio, but I can hear it. Yeah.
They're coming for me, man. They're coming for me. Time Bandits. Oh boy, have you seen this movie before?
No, I have not, and I did not care for it.
I didn't think that you would like it.
Did you like it?
Did I like it? I had a fine time with it.
Yeah, I just this movie moved.
Maybe we should. I want you to hold that. I want you to hold that thought.
Sure.
Maybe we should let people know what we're talking about.
Sure. So this movie is about a young boy.
True.
Who within the first 5 minutes gets invaded by a bunch of little people.
Yeah.
And these little people travel throughout time and steal gold and jewels and clothing from various figures throughout history.
That's it. You nailed it. Yeah, and the boy joins them on their adventure.
And the boy joins them. And
you nailed it. You nailed it.
And
so what were you going to say before?
This movie, the movie's pacing is very all over the place.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It doesn't feel like not even like a 1-act, 2-act, 3-act like process. It just feels like the movie goes where it wants to go, and you're along for the ride. There's a lot I could say, but I don't want to. Should we just jump in? I don't know.
I thought we started already. What are we talking about?
The actor who played the boy did a fine job. He did his best.
I agree.
They didn't write him to think about what was going on throughout the course of this film. He just kind of was there in every scene.
True.
And it almost felt like he was the viewer who was asking questions on our behalf, and people just ignored him the entire time. And it's not until the very end where they finally start listening to him and incorporating him into the overall idea of what's going on. But that ending is so chaotic and it makes no fucking sense that I just walked away feeling uncomfortable and weird by the end of the movie.
I hear you. Okay. Well, understand, everybody out there, in case you don't know, Time Bandits is from 1981, and it's also a Terry Gilliam film. So you know it's going to be a little bit weird, and you know it's going to be pretty comical, which it is. You know?
I think that was the hardest thing for me, is that I had a hard time knowing when to laugh and when not to laugh.
That's a very interesting thing to say. Can you elaborate on that more? Because, like, I'm going to let you know something. I have never in my life, I think, worried about when I'm supposed to laugh.
Well,
did you feel that way?
I didn't think I was like... I guess what I mean to say is I had a hard time deciphering what was funny and what wasn't.
Well, that's the thing. Like, let's talk about what you just said. I have never in my life tried to decipher what's funny versus what not. Either I find something funny or I don't. You know what I mean? Are you saying you're sitting there trying to, like, determine whether something is funny as opposed to just being like, I laughed at that, or I found it comical, or I didn't?
Yeah, you know, like if something tragic happened, like something super tragic happened, should I laugh at that or should I not?
Once again, I don't think I ever make a choice to laugh. Well, it's a reaction. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's the thing, is that I guess what I mean is these moments would take place where something would happen. Yeah. Like for instance, Sean Connery plays a king, and
Agamemnon.
Agamemnon. I could say
Agamemnon.
Agamemnon.
Yeah, sure, that's good.
And the boy teleports out of the sky, lands on Sean Connery, saves his life, and for that moment in the film where the boy is with Sean Connery, it's the Sean Connery piece is my favorite part of the whole movie because it's so genuine, the connection between the boy and Sean Connery. There's just this moment of like, I don't have a son, I'd love a son, you don't have a family or a place to be, stay with me, you are my son, I'll teach you how to hunt, I'll teach you how to be a swordsman, and you can live with royalty in the palace. And the boy is like super charmed by this because in the beginning of the movie he's with his parents who desire these materialistic things and doesn't have them, nor does he care. But to be with someone who like is the opposite, where it's like, well, we have all this stuff, but it's unimportant. The connection's important.
Sure.
It's the real connection for him to have the entire film. And then when he's there and they're honoring him and they're celebrating, the Time Bandits show up to pick him up. And the entire scene, he's like, no, I don't do this. No, I don't want to go. I don't know. Please don't do this. And they raid everyone. They take everything. They disappear. And the way that they do it is super funny, and it's super like, you know what's going on, and it's very engaging, and everyone's laughing and exciting and clapping. But I felt this sense of sadness that I was like, leave the boy with Sean Connery. I want to see where this goes. And
what's wrong with that?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be funny or if it was supposed to be a serious moment, because
so now you're trying to figure out like the intentions of the filmmakers,
right?
Trying to figure out the emotions that they're eliciting from you, the viewer.
In that specific scene, what took place was a bunch of little people laughing and conniving and stealing, and it was funny throughout the film up to this point. But then when it happened to the boy in a personal way, and then what was worse is they teleported from there, went to the Titanic, and they dropped that bucket line, and it's reboot into stealing from rich people in the Titanic again. Like, and it was back to being humorous and comical, and I think that's why I was confused, because these ebb and flows in the film throughout built these moments of like genuine connection, followed by hijinks, and I guess that's where my confusion of knowing when to laugh was really taking over, because I was feeling opposite emotions of what was happening on screen to what I was feeling in the film.
I think what you're referring to are just, either juxtaposed emotions or complex emotions. comedy or laughter or joy or delight or elation, whatever, can exist alongside, sadness, maudlin. Like, that's called bittersweet. It's a more complex emotion than either one, but it exists because emotions are on a fucking spectrum, and they all mix together and can blend in different ratios to create like very nuanced feelings.
Yeah.
And even if they don't mix, like, I think at the same time, they can just be right next to each other, which is you could be enjoying the scene with these 6 dwarves in like horse outfits, like performing for a king. And then at the very next moment, you can switch and feel, oh no, tragic. He's going to lose like the surrogate dad that he just got. Mm-hmm. You can switch emotions, I think. I find it very interesting, though. Your language is what fascinates me the most. The language of, I didn't know when I should laugh, as if it's a choice. That's fascinating to me. But I think that we're essentially talking about the same thing, which is trying to understand the filmmaker's intention. Mm-hmm. And even if that is the case, though, I personally just, I usually just don't give a fuck. That's not true. In this instance, I didn't really give a fuck. Because it just seemed clear to me. Like, it seemed clear to me that, yeah, they wanted me to laugh at the party scene, and then they did want me, as you said, to feel a little bit bad that the boy was losing what he wanted. That was clear. And I think it was clear to you, but maybe the hardcore juxtaposition was a bit confusing for you. Maybe. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. I've talked a lot, Brett. How do you feel about this film? What's
how do I feel about this film?
Yeah,
I think it was a film that I could have grown up loving, but because I never saw it as a child, I have no feelings about it. Mm-hmm. Or rather, I don't have as strongly. I have feelings about it now that I've seen it. But they could have been stronger, is what I'm saying. Like, mm-hmm. this. So this film immediately came across to me as like, oh man, this could have been right alongside everything else in my childhood repertoire mm-hmm. of like stuff that I grew up loving. As a matter of fact, I think the thing that struck me about this film was how old it felt. And I don't mean that like as like a stupid dumb baby who doesn't know cultural context. She's like, this is old. I don't like it. Like, bitch, it's Beverly Hills Cop. Watch it. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like this movie employs certain mixtures of elements that don't get employed anymore. And so when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that's nostalgic. I haven't seen something like that in a while. The main example being, obviously children's films still exist. This is definitely like a family or children's film, right? Though what we're watching, Time Bandits, and those types of films still exist. But I think that's something that doesn't happen as often are children's films that provide opportunities and attempt to elicit emotions, tying back into what you were just talking about, that show imagery or have instances that attempt to make children feel emotions that are more challenging for them. And once again, I'm not saying, like, I'm not bringing this up to be like back in my day, but I do believe that I've seen a shift away from films that are inarguably marketed towards children, but that also have a little bit of darkness in them. Like things that, like imagery that could like fuck a kid up. Like,
there's a ton of imagery in here. Like, characters were dying left and right, explosions, tragic deaths. When you said this was a children's film just now, I kind of sat there and was like, "Are we sure?" Because
it's a family film for sure.
I mean, like I saw The Goonies, which was only how many years later? 4 years later, and no one died in that film. I mean, there were dead people, like, but like it wasn't crazy.
I'm glad you brought up The Goonies, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but like even The Goonies is very different from something that would exist today.
Sure.
For something that's for families, because The Goonies has pretty dark element. Like there's a dead body in the freezer in The Goonies. They wouldn't do that today.
You're right.
They wouldn't do that today.
Yeah.
And just like in this film, and it's stuff that I'm like, it's not scary. Like I wasn't scared watching the film. I doubt you were. I doubt any adult today would be afraid.
I felt uncomfortable throughout watching it for sure. I don't know if I was scared.
I would definitely like to talk about that eventually.
Well, Amanda and I were talking about it because she had seen Time Bandits, and she kept saying like, this movie messed me up as a kid. And
That's my point. I want to talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
I feel like, although, of course, kids still get afraid today. Of course, kids still get afraid at stuff that's aimed directly at them today.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the types of emotions and the types of settings and imagery that were broached by films back in the day went in directions that aren't explored as much today. I'm talking about shit like Neverending Story. I'm talking about shit like Legend.
Yeah.
Stuff that's like for families for sure, but also had like, fucking Tim Curry looking like the fucking devil, which is kind of fucked up. Dark Crystal and shit.
Yeah.
So that had some like disturbing imagery in it, but it's like, no, this is for the family and it was okay. And I'm not like here to talk about like this is better, we should go back. I'm not going to have that conversation. But what I am saying is that you asked me how I felt about the film. One of the first things I felt was like, oh man, this is definitely from a bygone era, just based on like how this is definitely for kids, but it's also like very dark at times. And I dug that.
There was an element where I had more fun laughing at the villains being evil than I did at the heroes being heroes.
Sure.
And I know that was kind of the intent of having the villain be this like ominous being that's powerful, and like if something doesn't go the way that he does, he just combusts them or turns them into a dog or whatever. And that was always funny. That made me laugh. But
yeah,
I think when you saw the context of a young boy and a bunch of cowboys and a bunch of knights and a bunch of soldiers just get filleted by this one dude, and then like you see his friends get turned into a pig or whatever. Like there's this real element of like this young kid's like, how do we stop this omniscient time being from taking over? And there's just a sense of dread of, oh, you can't. And then obviously that gigantic face from the beginning of the film comes in and
the fucking supreme being. Yeah, guys, we'll talk about it. But
yeah, that was the supreme being mixed in with the evil villain, mixed in with the Time Bandits. All just those three things to me just didn't connect and land as well as I thought they would have.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. It sounds to me like you're just saying you didn't enjoy them, which is fine.
I think they just felt like three different parts of a movie that just got pushed into one. Like the supreme being did not need to be in the same film as the evil being, the way that they did it.
That one I'm gonna call you on. Really? The ultimate good didn't need to be in the same movie as the ultimate bad?
The ultimate good being was at this point you spend more time with the evil being than the supreme face that's haunting them throughout the film. The supreme,
that makes sense. Yeah.
And so I don't give a crap about the supreme being so much as I'm more confused as to the evil guy, because we spent so much time hearing their plot, seeing their power.
He's the villain. Yeah.
So the supreme face thing just like didn't connect with me as I thought it would. It just was like, why is this in this movie?
He's the I mean, if you're asking me, is he necessary for the movie? No, but like rarely are things necessary in a movie like this. This movie's like not that well written in my opinion. So like, was he quote unquote necessary? No, I don't think so. But if you ask me why he was there, I mean, he served many purposes. He was like the impetus to constantly move from time to time, things like that. He was there to serve as a red herring for who our villain was for a while. Mm-hmm. I think he served purposes. I just don't think the connection was strong enough in my eyes. It just didn't really. The connection between what?
Between having him in the film to the villain. It yin to yang, sure, but I just didn't really. I didn't really care when the ambient being showed up, supreme being showed up to like save the day.
Oh well, neither did I. Are you okay? You're swaying.
No, I have a bad back. I'm in a lot of pain, so I'm trying to.
I got you.
I know. It seems like I have a nervous tick, and I'm sure people are going to call me out in the episodes, but my back is just in bad shape, so I'm trying to stay nimble as possible.
I'm just making sure you're all right. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, did I care about the supreme being who literally pulled a Deus Ex Machina at the end? Deus Ex Machina? No, I did not. But I'm not sure we were supposed to care about that character. Much like we weren't supposed to care about the fucking couple aboard the Titanic. Like, they're there for a gag.
That bit was always funny to me. I think that was one of the funnier bits in the film, was just like...
But laughing at someone isn't the same as caring about them, and like, I laughed at the supreme being.
Sure.
At the end, I don't know about you.
The supreme being was like I just kind of checked out. I was like, all right, it's in the movie now.
Jirard did not like this movie.
I had great moments. I really enjoyed some great moments from it, but I think just overall I felt uncomfortable. Nothing really connected with me. I didn't care about any of the Time Bandits. None of them really had arcs other than at the end we're sorry.
I'll agree to that. Yeah, I agree.
And more importantly, the main protagonist, who's the boy, didn't really have an arc or understanding of what was going on. And then in the last 3 minutes of the film, spoiler alert, his parents combust, and that's how the movie ends.
Yeah, it's true. His parents die.
And throughout this film, this young boy sees so many people that he gets to know explode, combust, die, get taken away from him. And then when he comes back home, his house is on fire. His house is burnt down. His family is like okay, and then like he sees the oven, and I think he like references that the evil being's in there, or something. He says something.
Yeah, a piece of the evil. Yeah,
piece of the evil being. Yeah, and he says no, and then they combust, and the film ends.
Yeah,
and it just feels all very existential for me to be a family film to care about anything, and I don't know. I didn't care about anyone. I didn't care about the stakes. It was just the only thing I ever cared about in the movie was the connection between Sean Connery and the young boy. That was the most concrete relationship we had the entire film.
I think that's pretty valid, man. Yeah.
And the rest of it was just kind of a hodgepodge of weirdness and messiness. And I don't think if I saw this as a kid, I'd have nostalgia for it. I don't think I.
Oh, see, I disagree. I think if this was one of like the 7 VHSs that you had, you would have grown up loving this film. I don't think that's to say like because this movie's excellent. I think it's just because that's how we were.
I felt that way for things like Neverending Story or Labyrinth, but I didn't get those vibes at all from this film.
What? We just had a conversation about how this film is so similar to that one in tone.
Maybe in presentation and tone, but I don't. To me, it's like a weird version of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah,
and more just like Kevin's fucked up travel experience.
Obviously, the premise isn't the same as Neverending Story, but I think there are several similarities. And I think the most important thing that I think I disagree with you on is that, like, if this movie, if we had grown up with it, I think we would have liked it probably just as much as those other films. I can't prove that, but that's what I believe.
Sure.
You know? I think this film, I'm not fascinated by this film, but I think there's aspects of it that I was like asking questions about. And I was like, oh man, like, is that what's really going on here? Because the Time Bandits have a map that allows them to find the holes through reality, to go through time and steal shit from people. Fun premise, whatever. But after their first real heist, that's when the exposition starts, where the main bandit, I think his name is Randy. I'm sorry. The main like the leader is explaining to the boy, like, here's like, this is what we do, and here's how it happens, because the boy has a lot of questions that I had too. And the dude basically unloads like, all right, the supreme being, aka the fucking sovereign from Venture Brothers. I guarantee, like, I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's where they got it. Like, that's what they were influenced by.
You're totally right.
The supreme being is the fucking sovereign.
Yep.
They're like, yeah, we worked for the supreme being who created everything, and like, we helped him create it. We helped him create everything. I'm like, are you talking about God? And I thought the movie was gonna, like, you know, like, oh, okay, so it's like an analogy for God and shit. And then over the course of the film, it stopped being an analogy. It was like, no, it's actually God and the devil that we're talking about. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
all right. So I'm like, so where do the 6 dwarves? By the way, I was like, the Time Bandits to me feel like the 7 dwarves.
I thought the exact same thing.
If Dopey died and they lost their moral compass, so they became bandits.
If Dopey died, the moral compass is lost, and Snow White didn't give a fuck.
Right, and Snow White she's gone away because she's already with the prince or whatever.
She's married, she's moved on.
Right, but like, Dopey died, and so they slowly like slide down the moral slope towards being just assholes. But anyway, I just found it fascinating. I'm like, so, you know, if they used to work for God who created everything, and he says the reason they like got fired by the supreme being is because they created a tree that was like too fantastical. I'm like, that sounds like some Old Testament shit. They say they've been alive for thousands of years. I'm like, are they angels? Like, are they angels who like sat out the big fight? Because like in Judaic texts and whatnot, they say that like there were 3 factions. There were like the angels, the host defending fucking Yahweh and shit. Mm-hmm. There were the third of the angels who like defected and went to fight for Samael and shit. And then there were the neutral ones who eventually got banished. I'm like, were these fucking like, are the Time Bandits supposed to be like cherubs that like were banished from heaven? That's kind of fucking metal. Like, and so the whole time I'm watching this movie like that, I'm like, that's kind of cool. And like I said, slowly over the film, it stopped being hinted at and it stopped being an analogy. And eventually they keep referring to the Supreme Being as God, and they keep referring to David Warner, who's incredible, by the way, as the evil genius. And I'm like, okay, so I guess it really is God. And as you said, the movie does indeed end with like, evil genius is about to kill everybody, and it's a literal Deus Ex Machina. Of course, why wouldn't it be? So I found that kind of fascinating. And I guess the only other thing that I found kind of interesting about this film is its themes. Movies where themes of like, just, don't be materialistic, connect with people, that's what's most important. That's not new. I found it pretty interesting though that the not the parallels, but the associations of like what's paired with technology, right? As you put it, technology and modernity and materialism is equated with the parents at the beginning, and honestly, it's equated with the devil. The devil in the film is literally like, I want all the lasers and computer chips. And I'm like, okay. And it's not like this character, it looks like Angelica Houston and Captain EO, he looks like a wizard. Yeah. But he still wants that technology. I'm like, okay, so it's clear that they're equating like modernity with evil.
Yeah.
And it seems like the film is also equating and associating, by contrast, associating purity with the opposite of that, which is like history and myth, which are the things that the boy from the get-go is obsessed with.
Yeah.
I found that pretty interesting because, like I said, things that are explored all the time in movies is like, yo, man, materialism bad, connections good. But to be like, no, modernity questionable, myth and history, like, check it out. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I agree with you, and I think the interesting aspect of it is that the kid is the one who's like myth and history is what's interesting to him, and because it could have been in the beginning of the film, right, that he was the materialistic one, and then he goes on the journey and realizes that the materialism stuff isn't important.
Sure, you're absolutely right.
But instead, he knows that materialism is not important, and he sees his parents in that final maze section, as they parody the show that their parents watch every night, which I think is very interesting.
I also think it's very telling that show is called Your Money or Your Life. Yeah. It's literally the choice that his parents have made. Yeah. They chose their money, and they've kind of sacrificed their lives for it. You know what I mean? Brett, with a very young Jim Broadbent, he was very skinny and very straight. We got real talk before we go. The cast of this movie is incredible because you got, as you said, Sean Connery. You've got a weirdly beardless John Cleese, very strange, and a fucking young as you can get, Ian Holm playing Napoleon Bonaparte, who's incredible in that role.
He was one of the funniest moments in the film.
Yes, he was great.
Yeah.
And I have to shout out David Warner again. I hope that dude's still alive. Every time I see David Warner on screen, he's incredible. He was incredible in this movie. He's incredible as the professor in Secret of the Ooze. He's incredible in one of the best episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, the fucking 4 lights. And he's like Ra's al Ghul. He's fucking Ra's al Ghul, dude.
Yeah.
So shout outs to David Warner, man.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 5, Brett, I give this movie 1 explosion that murders both my parents out of 5.
Yeah, you did not like this film. I didn't think you would like it. Let's be honest, I didn't really dig it that much either because, I'm an old guy now. It's not for me. But I thought it was fine. It was too long. It was half an hour too long.
Yes, it was very long.
Like that whole sequence with the ogre on the ship didn't need to happen.
Very, very rarely do I watch a movie where I'm like, "Are we still watching this?" And that was like this with this film.
I'll agree. That being said, I don't know, man. I'll give it two exploding parents out of 5.
Guys,
2 exploding parents.
This has been Beard Bros Reviews. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys very soon. Bye-bye.
You won't know waggity sex no more. Waggity sex.
Kill that man.
No.
Why not?
You
I can just take an elevator.
No more. Waggity sex.
Used to be wackety sacks.
Waggity sex. Waggity sex. Waggity sex.